Wow. There's so many people. Thank you for coming. Okay, before we get to the meat of it, let's do here's a quick agenda. So some housekeeping items. I will do a brief self-introduction, and then we'll dive into product vision. One thing is, this is actually my first meetup ever, so please be nice. No, but more seriously, tell me afterwards if there's something that we can do better, whether it's the topic or the speech or anything about the organization of the event. We would like to do better, and we would like to do a lot more of these events going forward. So please be open. And the second one is something like product vision and building product, especially top-notch products. That's one of those things that you can spend all your life doing, and you will still get it wrong sometimes. So I'm honored to be here to speak about it, because I in no way claim to be like an expert that is like a master of this stuff. It's always a process. It always involves a lot of people and a whole team behind you. So definitely I want to have a discussion about this rather than having this be like me telling you the prescription of what you need to do to build really good product, okay? So I'm learning as well, and I'm happy to be learning with all of you here together. So quick housekeeping. Pizza's coming at 8, so I will talk really fast. No, I'll probably go a little bit till after 8. So if you start smelling things out there, like try to pay attention. Bathroom is just around the hallway right here, if you haven't seen it yet. And drinks are in the kitchen. Please help yourself. And if you're on your phone while the session is going, I know you're going to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm right there. That's totally fine. Other uses of phone, please don't do it. And of course, I have to say we're hiring. Please check us out if you are thinking about looking for a new job soon. And we'll speak for about an hour, including some time for questions at the end. And then we'll have an outro, and then there will be some time for networking afterwards. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Yeah, can we do it in German, please?
Do it in German. Ich spreche nur ein bisschen Deutsch, Entschuldigung. Aber ich lerne, ich habe Deutschkurs zweimal pro Woche. So I'm trying. And that was the meetup. Thank you very much. I'm done. All right. So about me, I know what you're all thinking from looking at this slide. I know what you're all thinking this is obviously me with a scuba mask on. But what does she look like? She's sitting right there. Ha! Okay. All right. So real quickly, this is my family. I'm from Taiwan originally. This is the beautiful city of Taipei where I grew up. You will see this building is called the Taipei 101. It used to be the tallest building on the planet, and now it's second to the one in Dubai. This is Seattle. This is where I spent about 20 years of my life, and also where I started doing technology and studied computer science. And this is the University of Washington in April. Why April? Because these are cherry blossoms. They bloom 1 week out of the year, and that week is the most amazing week in Seattle, in my opinion. And that's my best friend, Roger Federer. We just hang out sometimes. I drive down to Basel, and I'm like, hey, Raj, you want to grab a drink? No, I met him in Australia after he won the tournament in 2017, because I worked at the tournament that season, and that was maybe one of the highlights of my life, minus, of course, this one. All right, so that's about me. I worked at Uber before, like Chris said, and Redfin as well is where I started my career. Redfin is a real estate brokerage that's powered by technology in only the US and soon Canada. You could kind of think about them as like if Immobilien Scout and Sparkasse Immobilien like combined into one company. So there's a website and a brokerage with the makler who help you buy or sell your home. Okay, so it's kind of like that. Okay, cool. That's me. All right, so let's dive into product vision. And why do I need a product vision? So I think we should start answering that question by talking about what a product vision is. And you can Google product vision and you'll get something like this, which is way too much to read, and I don't really want to do it. So in simpler terms, let's talk about 3 concepts that I think is really important to to understand and differentiate. Vision, strategy, and tactic, okay? Vision is where you want to go. Strategy is doing the right things to go where you want to go. And tactic is doing those things right. So where am I going? What things do I have to do? How do I do them right? Okay? We're going to focus more on the left side of the slide today, more on the vision and the strategy, and less on the tactic today. Maybe that's another meetup in the future. So vision, strategy, tactic. Make sure you understand the distinction here. And just to help you with this, I will use an analogy, as people I work with here in the room know that I always use analogies for everything. So here's an analogy. Okay, this is one of my favorite products. It's Google Maps. It's pretty amazing. You type in a location, it takes you there. And why is Google Maps related to this topic? Because you can think about the UI of Google Maps as a combination of vision, strategy, and tactic. And let's say that we're going to Strasbourg for Christmas next year, because I heard it's amazing. You didn't know that yet, but we're doing this. And so you type it into Google Maps, and it'll show you different ways of going there. And let's say we want to drive, and there are 2 ways to drive, let's say. And it takes this much time, and it has a little map showing you where you're going to go and the alternate route. And the thing I want to say is this little box right here is the vision, because you have to first know that you want to go there to then figure out what you have to do to get there, right? So this stuff is the strategy. So how do you do this if you don't do this first? And this is why product vision is really important, because this is the start of everything, right? And if I keep going with this analogy, you can sort of think about when I click on one of these routes and it shows me the turn-by-turn direction for what I have to do. Those are product features or milestones that you have to achieve in the interim to help you along this strategy and achieve the mission of going to Strasbourg. And what are tactics? What are the things that you can do to make sure you do these things really, really well? It could be like bringing snow tires, because it's going to be Christmas time, so we don't get stuck on the road. Or filling up your tank so you don't have to stop halfway, so that it takes longer. And same with bringing lunch. Maybe we can eat lunch in the car instead of stopping somewhere to eat lunch. And those are things that you can do to make life easier for yourself. Make sense? Yes. Okay, great. Hopefully that analogy worked for all of you, because I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, so just like every highly converting article on the web these days, it's got to be something like 6 reasons to do something or 5 tips for avoiding that. So I have 6 reasons for having a product vision, and here we go. Number 1, it is a prerequisite for change, just like what we just showed you on the map. How do you know where to drive if you don't know where you're going? So you have to know where you want to go before you figure out how to get there. And Steve Jobs, this is one of the things that he said in the famous ad called The Crazy Ones, which is like from the 1970s, and it was when Apple was starting to make its comeback. And he said, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So, vision, prerequisite for change. Number 2, idea simplification. How many people here played telephone as a kid? Did it work? Did the last person say the same thing as the first? All right, that's what I thought. Okay, so why do we need to simplify ideas? Because in a complex organization like any tech company working on a complex product like insurance, there's a lot of communication that needs to happen. And so how do you make sure that what's in the founders' heads is actually what the rest of the team is building? That message between the team members needs to be as crisp and concise, as simple as possible, so that we all can very quickly know what the end goal is on a day-to-day basis. Every decision we make, everything we do, everything we build needs to align to that cause. And if a vision is not communicated clearly enough, people won't execute in alignment with the rest of the company, and they'll go off in their own little direction. So it helps communication. It helps simplify, 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 and scale. Okay? Number 3, group alignment. I really love this graphic because believe believe it or not, we actually used this at Uber to describe what we were doing, and I was like, that's not a good sign. So, yeah, group alignment. When we scale as an organization, we tend to have people who are more specialized. So, for example, for me, I work mostly on product, and what that means is I don't actually know very much about insurance. And I definitely don't hear enough from our customers, like our amazing 4 customer service people. So in a way, I am this person here who thinks I'm building a snake. And somebody else is thinking we're building a spear or something like that. And the elephant is the vision. And if we have a simple idea that's effectively communicated across teams, across people, we can have people who work on this corner of the elephant know that it's just a part of the elephant and not actually the elephant itself. So that's reason number 3 for a product vision. Number 4, collective imagination. Hope you all have seen this before. This is like kind of everywhere. So yeah, this is one of those illustrations that can be viewed in 2 different ways. You can either see a young woman or an old woman. And the message here is, if you convey a vision effectively, it is actually the most empowering tool you can give to your team, because they will see the problem slightly differently and come up with slightly different ideas for how to solve the problem. And it doesn't matter how smart any one single person on a team is, they will never be smarter than the collective intelligence of 10 or 20 people. And so if we communicate a vision and have free everybody up to use their own imagination and creativity to solve the problem and scope out a problem, the product and the services we create will be better. So unlock the potential of your team with your product vision. Number 5, rocking in place versus forward progress. This is going back to the map example. If you know where you're going, that is the thing you will use to measure whether you're getting closer on a day-to-day basis, right? And riding a horse, I mean, these 2 probably don't actually feel like the same thing, but you get the point. Riding a horse feels like riding a horse. If you ride a horse with your eyes closed, you don't know where you're going. It's unclear if you're actually going toward your goal or not. And how do you go toward a goal if you don't have a goal? So have a goal, ride the horse toward your goal. Make sense? And last but not least, prioritization. Having an end goal means we can see where we want to go and measure if we're getting closer. That means of all the ideas we collect toward building our product, we can have a discussion about which ones have the highest impact, which ones move us forward the most, and prioritize that way and build the most impactful things first. Are you sold yet? Somebody say yes? All right. So how do we do this? How do we do this? And I want to, oh no, my slide's broken. I want to tell you about this guy named Paul, who is somebody I know from Seattle. He runs a meetup in Seattle where monthly everybody gets into a cafe and people sign up to tell a story. And the only requirement is the story has to be about you and has to be real. Okay, and I signed up to tell a story once, and I found out how terrible I was at telling stories. But I was really nervous beforehand, and I asked him how to do it, and he said, the only tip I have is always know your last line before you start. Always know your last line. And to me, that's a little bit like a vision, because that's your end game. That is how you want to leave the world. That's how you want to leave your audience. So this is where we get into territory where actually coming up with a vision is not something you can prescribe. There's no right answer. It's like writing a song or writing a book. There's no checklist of things you can do to come up with that. It requires imagination and it requires creativity. And there are things that we can do to help us in that process, and I will talk about some of those, but there's no right answer to do. But here are some sources of inspiration. And I would think about them in terms of 2 different categories. Intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic means things that are within me. Extrinsic means things that are around. So intrinsic examples of that could be, if you just started a sentence with imagine a world where, how do you finish it? what are some things about the world or products you use that you just think could be better? How could they be better? And sometimes it's actually just intuition and gut feeling. Sometimes things just don't feel right, and sometimes things feel like they could be better. And those are all really nebulous things, I understand. And extrinsically, vision often is a commonality of all the ideas of people around you. And gaps in existing products, trends from other industries, for example, what happened to e-commerce today, you could make some parallels with what's starting to happen in insurance, as an example. History of the world, what happened during the Industrial Revolution to workers, and what's happening to drivers with automated driving today. There's some parallels there. And of course, I put random person on the street there just to kind of make a point, which is ideas can come from everywhere. I want to use this really silly example because I think we watched Forrest Gump like shortly before I worked on these slides. But I hope people here have seen Forrest Gump. But this is the scene where so Forrest Gump is this little boy, and they have a house in rural America, and to kind of get by, Forrest's mom rents out one of the rooms to travelers who are in their area. And in the story, one of the travelers who stopped by was Elvis Presley before he was famous. And of course, this is not a real thing, but in this scene, Elvis is staying in the room playing guitar, and Forrest is dancing to the guitar playing. Now, the thing you'll notice is that Forrest has braces on his knees because he was born with legs that are a little bit weaker than everyone else. So he's able to dance in a very weird way because his knees are very, very rigid. And he thought this was so fascinating, and it was this really interesting move, and incorporated it into his music, and then years later they found him on TV doing the exact same thing on stage. And so that's the joke. It's actually like his ideas came from Forrest Gump. And this, in my opinion, is sort of exactly how this stuff kind of works, is you have to pay attention, and you have to think about things you see and things you feel and integrate them into something that you create. And that is taking a vision to becoming a version. To give you a more concrete and real example, I have a video here I want to show you. It is a keynote from Steve Jobs from 2007. It was when the first iPhone was announced. I'm sure some people here have already seen it. It's about an hour long, but we're only going to watch 3 minutes of it because I think it's the 3 minutes that speaks to the idea of vision the most. So let me play this, and hopefully the sound will collaborate.
And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is. No. Actually, here it is, but we're going to leave it there for now. So, before we get into it, let me talk about a category of things. The most advanced phones are called smartphones, so they say. And they typically combine a phone plus some email capability, plus they say it's the internet, sort of the baby internet, into one device. And they all have these plastic little keyboards on them. The problem is that they're not so smart, and they're not so easy to use. So if you kind of make a Business School 101 graph of the smart axis and the easy to use axis, regular cell phones are kind of right there. They're not so smart, and they're not so easy to use. But smartphones are definitely a little smarter, but they actually are harder to use. They're really complicated. Just for the basic stuff, people have a hard time figuring out how to use them. Well, we don't want to do either one of these things. What we want to do is make a leapfrog product that is way smarter than any mobile device has ever been and super easy to use. This is what iPhone is. Okay? So, we're going to reinvent the phone. Now, we're going to start with a revolutionary user interface. Is the result of years of research and development. And, of course, it's an interplay of hardware and software. Now, why do we need a revolutionary user interface? I mean, here's 4 smartphones, right? Motorola Q, the BlackBerry, Palm Treo, Nokia E62, the usual suspects. And what's wrong with their user interfaces? Well, the problem with them is really sort of in the bottom 40 there. It's this stuff right here. They all have these keyboards that are there whether you need them or not to be there. And they all have these control buttons that are fixed in plastic and are the same for every application. Well, every application wants a slightly different user interface, a slightly optimized set of buttons just for it. And what happens if you think of a great idea 6 months from now? You can't run around and add a button to these things. They're already shipped. So what do? It doesn't work because the buttons and the controls can't change. They can't change for each application, and they can't change down the road if you think of another great idea you want to add to this product. Well, how do you solve this? It turns out we have solved it. We solved it in computers 20 years ago. We solved it with a bitmap screen that could display anything we want, put any user interface up, and a pointing device. We solved it with the mouse, right? We solved this problem. So how are we going to take this to a mobile device? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen. Now, how are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus. No. No. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them and put them away and you lose them. Yuck. Nobody wants a stylus. So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers. We're going to touch this with our fingers. And we have invented a new technology called multi-touch, which is phenomenal. It works like magic. You don't need a stylus. It's far more accurate than any touch display that's ever been shipped. It ignores unintended touches. It's super smart. You can do multi-finger gestures on it. And boy, have we patented it. So we've been very lucky to have brought a...
All right. Brings back memories, huh? All right. Why is my... Interesting. Okay. So, why was the iPhone successful? Anybody? Audience participation? First in pizza line if you get a good answer.
Had the Apple logo on it.
Had the Apple logo on it? Nice. Anyone?
Because they had a good vision and they knew what they were aiming for.
What were some parts of the vision that really made a difference, do you think?
Make smartphones smart and enjoyable to
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yeah. Yep. Smart and easy to use together. Good. You get to go first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The App Store.
App Store, yeah. The distribution of software.
I think Steve Jobs is just a really good storyteller.
But iPhone was successful. Yeah, he's also a very good storyteller.
They thought about the customer needs, so they knew that everyone needs a cell phone, but they knew that their phones are complicated to use. So they wanted to have the customers use the device easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah?
He sells more feeling than product.
Mm-hmm. More feeling than product, yeah.
Well, expandability, that there wouldn't
Expandability,
be
yeah.
new hardware wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Those are all great answers. I have, you basically said everything I had put here, but yeah, all in one device. easy to use and smart, adaptive user interface. And of course, he didn't talk about this because this didn't exist yet, but I'm sure he was thinking about it already, which is that the distribution of software, the creation of a whole platform for other companies and other engineers to come and build their own software to then sell to iPhone users, that created an entire industry. And that is huge. Yeah? All right. Cool. Hopefully that was helpful in illustrating my point. So, anybody want to give it a shot? Let's do a little audience participation exercise. I know it's late and you're hungry and pizza's coming soon, but turn to the person to your right or left if you're on the other side. Introduce yourself. Make some friends. It could be 2 or 3 or 4. It doesn't matter. But we will do like 3 minutes for this. I promise it won't be too painful. All right. So the goal is to come up with a product vision statement. And here's the tip. You don't have to use it, but start a sentence with imagine a world where and try to finish it and see what comes up. There are no bad ideas in this room. It's a brainstorm. Okay, you ready? I have 303 on this, 305. Ready, set, go. You have 3 minutes. Come up with a vision statement. Guten Abend. All right, that was 3 minutes. We're gonna, before we do this, I want to say that if anybody creates a company from a vision, from here, we want royalties, okay? I want to take credit for that idea. No. Anybody want to share? Please.
Imagine a world where everybody finds the job they were born for.
Oh, that's great. That is a great vision statement. Yes, please.
My vision fits or suits this one. So imagine a world where everybody one day finds his or her own path and follows it.
That's super interesting. What does path mean? That could be anything. That's great.
More than a job, maybe.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anyone else? Thank you for sharing, by the way. That's great. Yes, in the back.
Imagine a world where organizations and teams use the full potential of their people in their teams.
That would be a very good business. Anyone else? Okay. Awesome. I'm not missing anyone, right? Okay, great. I can't see in the back as well. So, all right. Thanks for doing that. I wasn't sure how that was going to work, but that was perfect. All right. So to help illustrate everything we just said and kind of add it all up, I'm going to tell a story about how we got to the current product vision at Getsafe, and it's kind of like a summary of the first month or 2 of my time here. And I will try to do it justice. But I think it's a very interesting, even for myself working on this talk, interesting exercise to think about how we got to where we are and how I might have done this better if I were to do it again. So here we go. So first I'll talk a little bit about the process that I went through, which when I decided to move to Germany, I called up literally everybody I ever met who worked at tech in product in Seattle, at Uber, at Redfin, and everything. And of course, this is sort of tying back to inspiration from people around me, and that was one of those extrinsic sources of inspiration. And definitely a lot of inspiration came from people in this building, and my team, and the founders, and everyone. But I wanted to call out 3 very interesting examples of people I talked to, and they're all in Seattle, but so they can't be here, but James, Devin, and PJ. So let me talk about each one of them a little bit. So James, this guy, he used to work for an insurance company based in Seattle called PEMCO. Now PEMCO is an interesting insurance company because they do not even try to be the cheapest insurance company. They're very, very expensive, and they are extremely selective about who they have as customers. And so he said that when he worked there, he had PEMCO insurance, and then he got in a car accident, and then something happened, and he didn't have PEMCO anymore, And then now when he wants to go get PIMCO again, because he had a claim, they actually wouldn't take him as a customer, even though he used to work for them. And he just said that something like that makes PIMCO customers feel very special, because to them it feels like they're getting, it's like a membership to something elite. And he said that the claims experience that PIMCO offers is they actually just pay your claim to you immediately, up to a very, very large sum, and they will fight for the money, because then it's their money. And so the customers say they're very happy because they feel like the insurance company is on their side, and they actually mean it because the claims just get paid. And so they will hire an attorney for you if you're having issues with the claims and everything. So kind of an extreme example, but he taught me about customer selection and what that might mean in the context of insurance. Guidant Financial, Devin, he's an executive who runs, I think, product at Guidant. And Guidant is a financial services company in Seattle. And he used to work in insurance, and he taught me about two things. The first one is that insurance is something that happens over the span of a life. And so you will buy insurance once every year or 2 years or 5 years. You will not buy an insurance product, a new insurance product every month. And so the life cycle of the customer is extremely long. And as a result of that, the way that insurance agents think about the initial sale and the subsequent sales are extremely different. Because once you land the initial sale, you at least have their phone number, and your agents can reach them, tell them happy birthday, whatever. And so to him, it's you solve the initial issue of initial sale, and then it's a giant engagement game after that. And so that's why you have people who send birthday cards and bottles of wine for Christmas, things like that, because the hope is 2 years later when you have a car, you will buy the insurance product with me because I sent you that bottle of wine and my name came up first in your head. That's the engagement, yeah? So he taught me about life cycle and engagement versus acquisition. And then PJ is my friend from Uber. He is now a product lead at a startup called Life360. And Life360 creates an app for families. Their target customer for now is actually moms that want to keep track of their teenagers. It's kind of funny. But they have features like, oh, I want to be alerted when my son is at school, and I want to be alerted when my daughter's home from work or something like that. And so we meet every 2 or 3 weeks just to talk about product and give each other feedback. He actually gave me feedback on this presentation, which is great. But because he works in families, and he actually said that they are exploring insurance as a way to monetize their family app. And so we talk a lot about, that's very interesting. We're thinking the other way because we're trying to figure out how to provide benefits to our customers beyond the bare bones of the insurance policy itself. And one of the areas might be helping you engage and bond with your family better. That could be a product we work on, as an example. So lots of sources of inspiration from everybody I've met here. Just highlighting 3 people to show you sort of bits and pieces of the puzzle that I'm trying to put together. Next is the customer journey. So we have this very awesome onboarding exercise at Getsafe here for new employees where you map out the customer experience from beginning to, I don't want to say end, but end, because end means they have the policy and they convert it and everything, right? And so this really stuck out to me because when we mapped it out, the user journey looks something like the top, which is, I need insurance. I go and search and learn about what is available and how it works. I get quotes from some companies. I pick one, and then I buy one of them. And to me, this just felt really, really wrong because in my dreams and in the ideal world and in my vision, there is a step before that, which is who wakes up in the morning one day and decides they need to buy a liability policy? Like nobody. Right? Like who? I mean, maybe Germany aside, but like nobody. Like in the U.S., it's like not a thing. So I just had this gut feeling that I want to draw a box here, and this just didn't feel right to me. Okay. And the last sort of example I will give is I started Googling around for where insurance came from, what exists, and I showed this picture because it's pretty and kind of conveys my point, but if we go back to the most basic form of insurance, like hundreds of years ago, before there was like financial services and stock markets and software engineering, insurance existed in a very, very sort of basic way. And it looked something like this. A community of farmers. They all know each other, their families hang out, and one of the families has a fire that destroyed their crops. And the problem is all these families rely on the crops to live and to sell, and basically it's their livelihood. So what happened? Did the neighbors just leave that family to starve? Like, probably not. So people pitched in, helped each other to make sure they get by the winter okay. And next year somebody else would have a flood, and the year after that somebody else would have somebody breaking into their farm and steal everything. And so over time, it evolved into this cultural norm where we just understand. We have this understanding as a community that everybody pitches in every month to this food bank, and if you're in trouble, you use that, and that's just the norm. And in that world, it felt really, really acceptable and normal and beneficial to be part of that because it's how the community becomes resilient against disasters. It's what enables individual members of that community to recover from something that's really, really bad, right? And as communities grow, you can also imagine that food bank becoming bigger, and now somebody has to go clean it and make an inventory, and it becomes this something like a business where somebody has to work there and maintain it, and then maybe over like the next 100 years you have an insurance company. And the thing that strikes me about this is it's very, very different than how insurance is perceived today. In this world, people who are in the community didn't have a problem with paying that monthly dividend to the food bank. It was very clear to them how that was benefiting them and their community. Today, we kind of think insurance companies are just trying to make tons of money and not pay our claims and lock us into contracts and all of these things. And I just wonder if, like, how do we go from this to the world today? And that doesn't feel right. So to add that up, there were sort of three statements that are still very vague, but that are somewhat starting to become concrete in my head. And the first one is that Getsafe provides products and services that directly address human needs. It should be something that somebody will wake up, it should be a reason for somebody to wake up one day and open our app. And we cannot always rely on that reason being, I need a liability policy today. It just feels very unnatural. The second one is Getsafe engages with people before they realize they need insurance. And that is the additional customer journey step at the very beginning. And last but not least, insurance will feel more like a companion rather than a pile of paperwork. And this is trying to find the roots of insurance. This is going back to that community of farmers who are helping each other. And it just felt good because it made sense. So here's the pitch. I'm almost done, I promise. This is very, very close to an actual presentation that I gave right here to my team talking about the product. So sorry to everybody here who's already seen it. All right, so keeping in mind the process we just walked through for the vision. So here's a slide. Peace of mind is a basic human need, and peace of mind came from our website. I actually used that screenshot in my interview here because I said, like, I really love that we're trying to do peace of mind and not do insurance. Because peace of mind is a human need. There are many ways you can achieve peace of mind. Insurance is just one of them, and so that broadens the scope of our company and our mission much, much more than insurance alone. And that's how I feel about sort of these things here, which are basic human needs, like I want to feel safe, I don't want to worry, I want to be able to plan for the future, I want to know my family will be okay. Now, the right, insurance products, it's really unclear how that maps to these human needs. And insurance happens to be how we make money, but the reality is that insurance is actually kind of hard to sell, because it's not like you wake up one day and you want insurance. You wake up one day, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you gotta have clothes on, you gotta go to work, and so on. But insurance is not one of those things. It's also extremely complicated. And so if I were to put human needs on this side and insurance products on that side, what happens in the middle? How does somebody who wake up one day and is hungry and eating muesli and having some coffee actually get to one of these places? And I think traditionally, agents have more or less filled that gap through things like you schedule an appointment, you talk about your life, your goals, you want to have a family, a car, a house, and they kind of recommend you an insurance package. And so how can we do this better? And that's the question that we really want to address, is how can we bridge this gap? Because we really think that the future of insurance is much more than about insurance products alone. It will fit into the lives of people. It will help them do things that they've always wanted to do with their lives, and insurance just kind of is an added-on part of that. And we want to be part of that journey. So here's an example. This is sort of the like, I would say almost say the boring insurtech pitch, which is we want to put insurance on an app. And I'm sorry if that's like what one of your statements before, but I think I'm like kind of over this idea, which is that we want to bring technology to insurance. We're going to make a really delightful user experience with a website and an app. We're going to make it on the go, on demand. You can buy, cancel anytime, file claims on the app, upload documents, get payouts immediately through a bank transfer without paperwork, all of that. So this is, I think, kind of table stakes and normal for an insurtech to work on. And of course, we should think about claim automation. Of course, we should think about how to sell insurance and make it really user-friendly. But the user journey in this world still starts with, I just bought a bike and I need to insure it. And we say, here's my bike insurance policy, €1 a month. Go to town, buy it, right? And you can build the best app in the world and you can create the best user experience, but at the end of the day, your user journey is still, I need insurance. And that's where it starts. And so we can broaden this by flipping the equation on its head, which is that insurance becomes a part of a lifestyle. And the first step in the customer journey is we tell our customers there's been a bike theft in their suburb recently. Here's how you prevent that from happening to yourself. They swipe on the notification or whatever device they're on, and we show them an article with the tips, and at the very end we say, if you really want to feel safe about this, it's only €1 a month to buy your insurance policy. And I think the success in this world will look like millions of people will use this app. Maybe 2% of them will actually buy the insurance policy, but I think that's okay because we're able to provide a customer benefit to people before they buy insurance. And then it's a problem of getting more of your audience to buy the product. It's no longer a problem of creating the audience. And I think that's much, much harder than optimizing funnel conversion. Okay, so with that sort of flip in the journey, we've basically created an entirely new customer group that we're now thinking a lot about. And before this, we had, of course, two groups of customers we would build things for. The first one is, of course, people who want to buy an insurance product. So I want to buy bike insurance. The second one, of course, we're building a lot of technology to help ourselves be more efficient, to be more productive, to work faster, to make claims automated. So we'll spend a lot of time working on this. But we're also now thinking about this, which is more along the lines of things we build for general consumers rather than people who are in the market for an insurance policy. So the difference is, if you own a bike, you cannot use our app. And maybe some of you won't like insurance. Okay? And to align with these customer groups, we started thinking about how do we structure this in a way that makes sense in terms of areas of product to invest in. And very naturally, we now have 3 parallel teams that are working on 3 different customer segments. And I always draw this Stonehenge because I've drawn this Stonehenge like nearly every day for the last 3 months. It's ridiculous. It's just like 4 boxes. It's not even cool. But we really, I think it's an interesting visualization because this is extremely hard to change. It's not impossible. Nobody knew they needed an iPhone until the iPhone existed. So if you're really, really good at what you do, you could change that. But that's really, really hard. And the things on the right here are things that we help ourselves, which support what we do. Insurance products for those insurance customers. But the thing that bridges human needs and insurance products is an entire category of lifestyle features that we need to work on. And that's where we're exploring right now. And that's great. That's a vision of sorts. What about turning it into the version? It's actually pretty simple. I like this joke because it's geeky, and I'm a geek. But lather, rinse, repeat, that's what it says on every shampoo bottle, right? But actually, it is just a matter of redoing the exercise that we just went through, but giving your very first premise a little bit more context. Let me give you an example. How would you come up with a product vision for insurance products? And that's the extra bit of context we have to, all you have to do is add a little bit of context to make the scope of what you're working on a little bit smaller. And then at the end of the exercise, you will actually come out with features that are concrete, that a team can actually go explore and work on. And this is how it would manifest in the exercise we just did, which is imagine a world where insurance is ... instead of just imagine a world where. And here's some statements. Our insurances are on demand. Customers can buy, manage, and cancel anytime. Simple, transparent, easy to understand. Have a one-stop shop. Make it easy to file, manage, and receive payouts for claims. And if you gave, I'm confident that if you gave this slide to a team of researchers, engineers, product managers, designers, writers, they could actually go figure out what does this mean in the eyes of our customers and create some mock-ups and get some feedback and iterate on that, and out on the other side will become a digitalized insurance. And that's how you start to get more concrete from way up here and get to here, and this is where the versions come out. Okay, that's it. Any questions? Please.
So, hey Patrick, so my name is Jan. First of all, congratulations. And actually I have to disagree, I think you are a great storyteller.
Thanks.
And on a side note, I strongly suggest introducing storytelling meetups to Heidelberg. I think that's a really cool idea.
Oh, I love that.
And so my question, I'm trying to phrase it in your metaphor a little bit, like talking about the journey.
Yeah.
Like some years ago, you were a computer science graduate in Seattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're here, you're in Heidelberg, you work with, not with computer science or code, you work in a much more strategic position.
Mm-hmm.
You have a girlfriend as a former computer scientist.
She found me, not the other way around. Like, I don't get any credit for that one.
When did you narrow down your own vision? Like, when did you decide, I don't want to be a senior Python developer in the Silicon Valley. I want to work with product. I want to work much more tangible in a way.
Yeah.
And how did you implement that vision?
Yeah, I'm going to separate that my answer into two different parts. Okay. There's like life before Germany, and I should say there's like life before Sarah and life after Sarah. Okay, so let's do the before part first. I studied engineering and basically found my way to product by trial and error. Mm-hmm. My first internship ever in technology-related field was actually a IT developer at a company called Safeco Insurance. I don't know if you knew that. My first job was actually an insurance company, and that was a company where it was a very traditional insurance company, and when I was there as an intern, they were trying to outsource their entire engineering IT team to India, and every day my coworkers thought they were going to get fired. And so I thought, not doing that again, and then I tried, and then I interned at Microsoft as a software engineer. And as a software engineer, I felt super, super lonely. And that's partially Microsoft and partially my personality, because I was just in a room and I was actually like pretty good at coding. I got an offer back. I was good enough to do that. But it was a really silly thing. I didn't really know this at the time, but I actually think I really needed more human interaction in my life. And I remember I had like 2 meetings on my calendar because I was just coding most of the time, and that's like a luxury. But I was so excited to have those 2 meetings every week. And I think it's because I just needed to have more people time. And so the summer after that, I decided, okay, I want to not do a big company and not write code. And if you study computer science, there's like 3 jobs in the world you could have. This was like pre-data science days. You could be a QA engineer, software engineer, or product manager. And I want to try being a product manager. And if you are a computer science major who didn't want to write code and didn't want to work for a big company. There are actually very few companies you can intern for. And that's how I found Redfin, which was my first PM internship, and that's how I discovered product management. Did that answer your question for the first part anyway?
It definitely does.
Okay, so the second part actually has nothing to do with a plan or a vision or anything. It's just I went on a gap year, and I worked at Australian Open and met Roger Federer, my bud. And at the end of that trip, decided to do a diving trip. Liveaboard is 3 days. You're on a boat, you dive 4 times a day. You see the barrier reefs because they're dying, so you have to go see them. And met her on that trip. And that's where Germany started. So I actually had no idea, like, 2 years ago even, that I would be in Germany. I thought I was going back to Seattle to, like, find a job again. So yeah, that's my story. I don't know if that helped you at all. That might have not been very helpful. Because maybe you go to Australia now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I guess we all know how powerful a vision is. It's like a dream pulling you towards a direction. But we all know that every day we get stuck in the details, like the strategy or the tactics.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you remind yourself of this overarching vision? Like, really, how often do you look into your notes?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the vision, and we want to be a body, or I don't know.
Yeah.
How often do you do this?
Yeah, there are sort of 2 levels of complexity to that answer. The first one is work like this actually. It's not something that you can sit down in a room for 3 hours and just like figure out. And so it's a process. It takes time. It takes talking to people. It takes, sometimes the best ideas I have often are like in the shower or biking home from work. And so it's being aware over a period of time and then making sure you remember what occurred to you at any given moment. And then at some point you have to go and like write down what you think. And those things do take time, and that becomes more of a time management issue where I do block off time on my calendar, which is just like focus time and contact to schedule kind of thing. And so as much as possible, I try to make time for it in my day-to-day through like very, very literally blocking off my calendar. But as far as like how often do I think about it or am reminded of it, it's dozens of times every day. Because every time somebody at the company makes a decision that I don't think fits into my version of the vision is a symptom that I didn't communicate that vision well enough. And I would do this all over again if they could make more decisions that are aligned. And it's a really, really hard thing. It's a really easy thing to say. It's really, really hard to have we have 40, 50 people, to have all these people have that same picture in their head and make the same decisions that I would, because they have a different version of the vision in their head. And so to answer your question, it's constantly. And constantly it's, okay, I didn't agree with that. Should I pick that battle or not? And sometimes I say, that was okay. That was good enough. Sometimes I say, that was great. I did a good job. But most of the time it's, should I pick that battle? And then sometimes I will say, yeah, we should have a conversation about this. And then but yeah. But then you're thinking about leverage because it's like the battles you pick better have an impact because you only have so much time in a day. Does that answer